Hello everyone, Jester Bell is back, and today I'm making a video I really didn't want to make. It's similar to last year where I finally just coughed up and made a video about how I felt about the Birds of Prey movie. I was really upset about that and really emotional about that, but a lot of people asked me to make it, and so I did. I finally said my thoughts and my feelings on that movie, and this is a little bit similar a video I'm making about something that I think is really not good that's happening. But just today, finally, there was a point where I'm like, okay, I got to at least get my thoughts on this thing that's going on out there. I gotta get it off my chest. What's going on? This is a Harley and Ivy video, and it's going to be a video talking about how their relationship, not as a friendship, but as a romance, has all of a sudden just become so prominent, and how it's really detrimental to the characters and really an actual terrible thing that's going on. So as I did in my last video, I talked about how there was going to be a new writer for the character of Harley Quinn in comics, and how I felt like, even though there's still some things I don't like about her portrayal, I feel like there's going to be some improvements. But I feel like those improvements are dashed, because more and more all I'm seeing people care about when it comes to Harley is this relationship she has, this new romance she has with Poison Ivy. And as I see the characters going forward, I see that Poison Ivy has become all about this relationship, and Harley is, ironically, after they tried so hard to get her independent, is becoming all about this relationship. It's just all, it's really, what's interesting is it's not really a relationship that I think a lot of people in real life really seem to care about. I don't know anyone who knows about it. I don't see a lot of merchandise for it, actually. It's really mainly on Twitter where you just see people just going, just all the discussion around Harley has become about this relationship, and you see the fan art and you see how amazing it is. It's really on Twitter, and they really seem to have pressured people who are running the characters to do this relationship more. And this relationship has recently, I think ever since Suicide Squad came out, I'll talk about in a minute, just become just this big phenomenon, because originally Harley and Ivy come from a very fan favorite episode of the same name from Batman the Animated Series, where they team up and become friends. But even with that, there just was not a lot of focus on this dynamic between the characters. I remember back when I got into the character, it was either Harley by herself or Harley with Joker. That was where the fan base was. There was even this big Harley and Deadpool ship on the internet that was going around. It was not a lot about Harley and Ivy, so much so that I didn't even know they were making them a couple, which they actually weren't. We'll get to that. I didn't even know that they were making them a thing until, again, post-Suicide Squad. There were so many articles about how Harley, as a popular mainstream female character, must be portrayed. And there were all these articles from the mainstream media saying that the true version of Harley's character is that she really doesn't love the Joker. She really needs to be with Poison Ivy, and that hyping it up that they actually did this relationship in comics, and that is deceptive because they've actually never fully committed to them being in a relationship in comics. In the comics, usually if they're a thing at all, it's in alternate universes. And even then, in the big New 52 Harley Quinn series by Amanda Conner that they were doing, that they hype it up so much for, they weren't girlfriends in that series. They were best friends who also sleep together. That was their relationship. It was done to be a titillating thing, to try to get people interested, to try to say, oh look, they were doing this with a lot of characters at this time, saying, oh look, we made this character bisexual. We're putting these two characters in a relationship. Did that with Catwoman, did that with Wonder Woman. Not something that would stick, and not something that they were really committing to, something they would do for attention. Now, a lot of people say, but these two characters, especially the shippers of this relationship, these two characters were always meant to be a thing together. And no, they weren't at all. They weren't. They go back to the animated series and say, but look at how close they are. They actually were not that close. There's plenty of examples of original material of the characters where you see Poison Ivy being really dismissive towards Harley. You see her being even violent at some times, because Poison Ivy, while she does care about Harley in her own way as sort of like a sister, she also gets very annoyed by her and very frustrated, and is ultimately only interested in her plans. And Harley originally was supposed to be all about being in love with the Joker, so it would not be in character for her to be in love with Ivy or really anyone else. She was portrayed as a very straight character, and what people always throw in your faces if you point this out I'll always say, oh, but the creator of the characters said that they were supposed to be in a relationship. Paul Dini, who has created this relationship, he has done interviews saying that he intended Harley and Ivy to be a couple, and he has done interviews saying that he intended for them to be just friends, and that it was the fans' idea that they were a couple. And it's similar. He's done interviews saying that he intended Joker to love Harley, and then he's done interviews saying that there was nothing between the characters and that Harley has been right to move on. Paul Dini, he has approved of the Suicide Squad rendition of the characters, the Birds of Prey rendition. I just see him as a crowd pleaser. He just says what people want him to say. He just goes along with whatever people are doing with this character. So I'm like, yeah, you guys, you're picking and choosing the interviews that he said what you want him to say. You're not picking up, or you're not realizing or acknowledging that he just says whatever people want to hear. I do not believe that and it's impossible for us to actually know what was going on in his head at the time. Those are his thoughts, but I do not believe that these characters were ever meant to be a thing, because they were not that way. Like I said, Harley was completely dead gone on the Joker, and one of her original important character traits was that she was incredibly loyal. She wouldn't be fooling around with anyone, let alone a woman, while she was running off with the Joker. So no, these two characters did not start as a couple, but they have had, and I know this as a fan, they have always had a certain group of people who want them to be a couple. And I think I attribute that, and I could be wrong, but I am aware that in the early days of Harley, there were a lot of hardcore fans of her that were actually bisexual and who ran their own fan pages about her, and who seemed very enthusiastic of the idea that Harley herself was a bisexual character. That's what I've seen, and I think that that's where a lot of it comes from. But they've had people who've always wanted them to be a thing, because they say, well, they're so close, even though there's plenty of examples of Poison Ivy being dismissive towards Harley, and Harley just not actually being that invested in Ivy over the Joker. And they say that they should be together because their relationship is healthier than Harley's and the Joker. But here's the thing: we get to this relationship, and the thing is, it's not very healthy. Like I said, in the comics, they're not even together. It's a polygamous relationship where Harley's just fooling around with everyone she meets, really, in this series. And Poison Ivy is just kind of this romanticization of for a polygamist, that she's just the submissive girlfriend who's just completely fine with Harley doing this, and just treating her as someone who she can go back and forth on. And it's a really bad, polygamous relationships are just awful in real life, because people do need loyalty. Those things are important, and this comic just throws it out because it wants to romanticize these two being in a relationship when they can't be in a relationship. So people just say this relationship is just so healthy. It's not even really a thing, and it's not healthy at all. It's another toxic relationship that they are this time completely romanticizing. But like I've said, they've kind of, despite the mainstream media really pushing this relationship, DC's kind of been on off with it. It in fact disappeared in the comics for a while in Harley's solo comic, and most of the time she's still portrayed as a straight character. But very recently, people online I see really brimming up in favor of this relationship, and and they discovered, because eventually articles were published about it. I don't think these people actually read comics. Articles were published that Harley and Ivy aren't really a thing anymore in comics, and then they started to explode and scream about it. And when we get to the R-rated Harley cartoon that they're doing on DC Universe, something I might add, or not DC Universe, it's now HBO Max, something I might add was actually a lot better received than most of the independent Harley portrayals. They actually did an interview with Kaylee Cuoco, who voices Harley in the show, where she indicated that they had done half the episodes, and that they so far had done absolutely nothing with Harley and Ivy in terms of being more than friends. They were only doing them as friends. They released that interview, and people exploded online. They were as soon as the trailer for the show came out, and the initial season of the show did not have them in a relationship, people started sending death threats to the showrunners, saying, you took away our LGBT relationship. This is an important relationship for people who need to get out of toxicity. You better do this relationship, or you are homophobic and you are hurting people. That's what they do about these shippers. They say you are hurting them if you're not doing this relationship, while they themselves are sending death threats. It got to the point where I saw a Q&A with the writers of the show where they were actually asking people, please stop sending us death threats and horrible messages to us. We will get to your relationship you asked for. Just please stop treating us this way. So they kind of backtrack on the show saying, oh, we were always going to do it, or we always thought we could do this. I think that because of how forced it winds up being on the show, it really does kind of come out of nowhere from what I've watched of the show and what I've seen other people say. That they kind of put it in there because they didn't think that they were going to get another season to say, okay, we did it. We did this relationship. So now you guys can be happy. And in the show, once again, it's not a good relationship. It's something where it really is over-sexualized again, like it is in the comics. And it romanticizes cheating, where Ivy cheats on her fiance, and it really seems to think it's okay with that. And it's just really written badly, as it is in a lot of other places, because you have to change the characters in order to get it to work. Harley's already being changed a lot because of what mainstream media demands the character be. Just recently, I've seen her, but she's being changed even more just to fit with Ivy. Like, there's things that they say. I saw it in a comic today being released about how Harley's already been changed a lot just because of what people demand, the mainstream media demands from the character, but I see her being changed even more because I'm like, she was never meant to be a straight up lesbian or bisexual character, for one thing, but also just to see her so dependent on Poison Ivy all of a sudden, and to say things like, in the most recent comic, and this is the interview that kind of set me off, you've got Stephanie Phillips, who I had high hopes for, saying that the reason why Harley wants to reform is because of how in love she was with Ivy. And I'm like, that makes no sense. Ivy is a villain. Why would Harley's love, if I'm supposed to believe that for Poison Ivy, motivate her to be a hero? That makes no sense. But then there's Poison Ivy's character, who's been completely changed just because of this relationship. Like I said, she used to be a very assertive character, very grumpy, and she was all about protecting plants even more than Harley. Now all of that is fading away, and Poison Ivy is becoming a submissive character just because they want her to be in this relationship with Harley. That's what they do in the show. All of a sudden, Ivy doesn't have any agency of her own in the show. Other characters keep telling her, you need to be in this relationship with Harley. It's meant to be. You need to be. Eventually, the reason why she gets into a relationship with Harley at the end of the show is because her fiance says, oh, you need to because it's meant to be. You feel this way. It's like not even her choice. It's other people telling her that she has to be. Kind of like the only reason this relationship even exists is because people online and in the mainstream media are telling them this relationship needs to exist. We need it. I am not seeing this relationship helping people, though. My friend runs a Harley and Ivy page for the new Batman adventures, and he did a post indicating, no, these versions are only friends, guys. And he got so much hate, so much people, again, death threats, telling him that he is hurting people and that he is homophobic. How dare he not? He is hurting abuse victims by not supporting this relationship. Meanwhile, Harley and Ivy continuously over-sexualize. They always have to do a sex scene or a kiss scene between the two because that's what their fan base, I think, is really interested in. They always are romanticizing cheating in one way or another. And I gotta say this, and this is going to be the most controversial part of the video, I think that the reason people really like this relationship is because it's at least the idea of it in their minds is the idea that two women are going to get into this relationship apart from men and just be perfect. And that's how a lot of lesbian relationships are portrayed in media, but it isn't true. There is a 98% rate of abuse in lesbian relationships in real life, and I got that from an actual LGBT site giving statistics on this stuff. There is a high amount of abuse and a amount of drama. So this relationship you're giving people under the guise that it is the healthy relationship that the characters need to be in good representation, it's a lie. But it's becoming what the characters are all about now. The animated show, again, it had some people saying that they really liked the show, and even though it's a not traditional Batman animated series hardly, they were gravitating towards it. They go and they make it all about a forced relationship, and that's when I see people saying that they're turned off by the show and that it's really not as good, and they hate how it romanticizes the cheating aspect. And then they go ahead and finally they get a season 3 because HBO Max wants to go forward with this show. And it's all about that relationship. That's the picture that they're promoting of them almost kissing for season 3. They're constantly doing like little videos and gifs all about the relationship, teasing how season 3 is going to be, the main point is going to be their relationship. Then we see the comics with Ivy. It's always about Harley. It's always about Harley. And while I think because the comics have been kind of on and off with the relationship, they probably won't go as into it as they say they are. That's all they seem to care about when it comes to Harley. It's always, I feel like she's only a hero at this point because she needs to be with Ivy, and I just can't stand it to continuously see her change just to fit the relationship. Is going to be an issue, a little issue to them in an upcoming Valentine's Day thing. And I saw the preview. It says that, oh, Harley started to love Ivy because she loves that Ivy fights for something. She fights for the environment, and Joker didn't do that. What's that all about? Harley, she would never hate Joker because he doesn't have a goal. She originally loved it that he didn't have a goal, that they could just be crazy together. If you're going to say that these two are breaking up, that's not a reason. And why would Harley love Ivy for her activism? Harley has never cared about that aspect of Ivy in any rendition that I've ever read. Again, you're just kind of making it up as you go along to justify this romance. And here's the thing. You can do it as much as you want, but there's going to be a breaking point. You're going to hit rock bottom. I don't see them making the characters more popular by doing this. I don't think anything they've done with Harley has made her more popular. They're continuously changing her in ways that make her more niche, ways that make her only appeal to a smaller and smaller group of people. And there's some people who still believe what I think is a lie, that Harley is just the most popular character ever. I'm an actual fan, and I don't see that. You can see the characters I bought, but the statues I have behind me. I'm an actual fan, and I don't see that. I see her sales in comics dropping, her interest in comics dropping significantly. A lot of people just don't care about her anymore. The Birds of Prey movie, again, it was sold on Everyone Loves Harley. Everyone will see this movie, released with no competition. It still bombed, even though they gave it the lowest budget they could possibly give it. And then you have the show, which had more people liking it in the first place, but that, first of all, has an inherently smaller audience, not because, first of all, because of the genre, and second of all, because of the streaming services it's appeared on. But now you're even losing that audience because you've made it all about this Twitter ship, and you keep thinking that Twitter is your audience for these characters when it's not, and you don't seem to care about promoting them to anybody else outside of Twitter. But yes, I'm sad that they keep doing this. I'm sad that they keep changing good characters just to appeal to a very small group of people that make themselves seem very loud online, and a group of people that actually is very terrible and that doesn't have any actual noble cause that they're fighting for like they say they are. And so, again, it's more one of those things that I think just eventually they'll probably hit rock bottom with it. It's like the Birds of Prey movie. Again, you can do this stuff, but that doesn't mean you have an audience for it. It doesn't mean you're going to continue to be successful at it. And I just think that they've really ruined both characters and made their audiences just continuously small by thinking that people by just giving into the pressures of what they hear online and the pressures of the mainstream media. And it's not going to work out. They need to change, but I don't think that these people who are in charge right now will, because they've got their heads up their butts thinking that they're doing a good thing. But we'll see. They have an absolute awful fan base behind this relationship. If they mess up with it, then they will get them clamoring behind them. But at the very least, they're not going to have people loving these characters like they used to if they continue on like this. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah, again, sad about this. I'm not going to be spending my money on any of the next Harley comics if they continue in this direction. They really need to just do what Sean Gordon Murphy did and say that there are 2 Harleys, and this one that's in this relationship is a completely different version, and bring the old one back through an alternate universe if they're going to do that, because they're just decimating it right now. So thanks for listening to my little rant and my little discussion about these characters. Did you make it all the way to the end? What do you think? Do you think that they're going to hit rock bottom, or do you think that they're going to continue to use their money and go on with this direction forever? Be sure to tell me about it in the comments. Subscribe, like for more videos. I'll have some more good stuff on the way, hopefully not so depressing for me. And I'll see you later.